Hello, history nerds and historians. My name is Krystina, and this is Effed Up Cryptozoology. This is where we talk about a little tidbit about a cryptid that's super fucked up, and if my audio sounds weird, it's because I'm not in my normal location. Sorry, you're gonna have to deal with it, because this is the moment that we have all been waiting for. This is at least the moment that I know I personally have been waiting for. I cannot wait to talk about my boo, Nessie. And I don't mean Edward and Bella's daughter, although Kristen Stewart screaming, "You nicknamed my daughter after the Loch Ness monster," is a soundbite that will continue to live in my head rent free for the rest of all eternity. I will be old in a retirement home, completely senile, riddled with dementia, singing about girl dinner and telling the tale of the cursed doll that they created for some reason in that movie, because it is unintentionally the funniest movie saga in like all film history. But let's leave Icicle Dick alone and instead plunge into the icy and murky waters of Loch Ness to discover what truly lies beneath that creature that for generations has captured the imagination of conspiracy theorists and scientists and tourists and random weird historians who live in Massachusetts who decided to start a podcast. But what do we really know about arguably the most famous cryptid in the world? Let's find out. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and practice your "oh good god, what the fuck" faces. So the Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, is described as a long-necked serpentine creature with one or more humps on its back. The classic depiction often resembles a plesiosaur, I think is how you pronounce it.
Plesiosaur.
Which is like an extinct group of like marine reptilian dinosaurs. Its skin is typically described as dark and scaly, giving it sort of like this prehistoric vibe to it. Now, the most famous modern day sighting occurred in 1933 when a couple claimed to have seen an enormous creature cross the road and enter Loch Ness, which then like triggered a wave of just like interest and investigation and studies. Over the year, there have been many alleged photographs of Nessie and even some videos of Nessie, but the most famous is referred to as the surgeon's photograph. This was taken the next year after that sighting with it crossed the road in 1934, which appeared to show the creature's long neck and head. This is that famous creature, that the famous picture. Like I know that you've seen it. It's the one that's like always shown and associated with Nessie. So the story behind it is kind of interesting. So in April of 1934, a London-based physician named Colonel Robert Kenneth Wilson, which is why it's called the surgeon's photo, was visiting Loch Ness in Scotland. And while he was there, he saw a large serpentine creature rising out of the water. He grabbed his camera and he snapped a photograph real quick before it disappeared, and he showed it to people, and it circulated all around the world pretty much and became this phenomenon. This picture shows what appears to be a long neck and head of a dinosaur-like creature emerging from the water. It created this sensation. It was widely published in newspapers and magazines, and it became like the substantial evidence supporting the existence of Nessie. Because of this picture, there was a lot of interest. There was a lot of lore surrounding it. It boosted the tourism industry. There was a lot of speculation about what it could be. But in the 1990s, a guy named Christian Sperling came forward. He was the stepson of a man named Marmaduke Wetherell, who was apparently known for his like involvement in Nessie hoaxes. And Christian admitted on his deathbed that he and his stepfather had constructed a model of the Loch Ness Monster as that couple in 1933 had kind of described it. And they used a toy submarine and like a plastic head, and they put it into the water. And that is what Colonel Wilson saw when he took a picture of it. So he basically admits like this whole thing is a hoax, but that has not stopped people from believing. And that hasn't stopped like other people also saying that they've seen Nessie as well. Now, as far as what the Loch Ness Monster actually is, there are a few theories about it, if it does exist. Some people think it all began in Scottish folklore because water spirits and cryptids are so popular, like the Kelpie and the Selkie and mermaids. But as far as alleged sightings that people have had, some people think it's just like a misidentification of a large log. Other people think that it might be a school of fish or like an unusual wave pattern, but that doesn't really explain to me like a head and neck sticking out of the water. Some people think it actually is an ancient plesiosaur. It could be an alien for all we know. There is one more theory, but before I tell you that, it is a theory that I have heard circulated in my many years on this earth. But before I tell you what this random last theory is, I want to quickly mention some other river and lake monsters from around the world. So there is the Thames River Monster in London, England. There's the Lariosoro in Lake Como, Italy. There's the... I am going to butcher this. The Storjudret in Lake Storgen in Sweden. There's another one I'm going to butcher. The Lagarfljótsármur in Lagarfljót, Iceland. I pronounce that so bad.
Lagarfljótsármur.
Apparently that. There's the Gloucester Sea Serpent up here in Massachusetts. There is Tessie in Lake Tahoe in the California, Nevada area. There's Champ, who's found in Lake Champlain, which is like the Vermont, New York, Canada area. There's Ogopogo in Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. Man, I am just winning with this pronunciation right now. There's the Ninki Nanka in West Africa. There's the Lakwada in East Africa, which I mentioned in passing in the Dinganek story. There is the Kasai Rex in the Congo River in Africa. There's the El Cuero in Argentina and Chile. The Nahualito in Argentina. The Hawkesbury River Monster in New South Wales, Australia. There's the Bunyip in Australia. The Lake Tianchi Monster in China. And Issy in Lake Ikeda, Japan. And I'm sure that there are more and more and more that I could pronounce even worse than I just pronounced all of those. And most of these are described, weirdly enough, really similarly to Nessie, with a large serpentine neck and humps resembling a plesiosaur, which leads to the weirdest theory that I have heard circulating in my time on this earth, which is that it's always been the same creature, seen in all these places. And in fact, there are like interdimensional portals between space and time that are found in these lakes, because waters are always known to like hold magic and be sort of transitory areas and be conductors and all these kinds of things, right? So this is actually a theory that I've heard a few times. I also found it when I read Outlander. I believe it was in the first book. I read book 1 through 4 like really quickly. But I believe it was in the first book where she comes like face to face with the Loch Ness Monster, and Claire is like, oh my god, it's a dinosaur. There must be stones in the loch, just like the ones that I touched that sent me back in time. And that's probably what's going on here. So some people think that Nessie has never been found because she just moves around to all these different places and times, because trust me, people have tried to find her. There have been multiple scientific studies done in Loch Ness, with one of the largest ones beginning in 1962. It was led by Adrian Scheim, who is a naturalist, and they used sonar and underwater cameras and searched and searched and searched for literally 10 years. And never found anything. Although they had some interesting readings, nothing was conclusive. There was also Operation Deep Scan in 1987 that used sonar and depth sounding equipment that all came back inconclusive as well. There have been acoustic surveys, aerial surveys, environmental DNA studies. There's even a project continued by Adrian Shine that is still going on today since the 1980s called the Loch Ness Project. And they use remotely operated vehicles and DNA samples and sonar and all the bells and whistles, but still have not come to any conclusive evidence that she exists over there. But they will keep searching. And I have to say, everyone always says that the Sasquatch is the world's hide and seek champion, but I mean, at least we have some evidence for the Sasquatch, right? I'd say that title of hide and seek champion should maybe go to Nessie or whatever Nessie actually is. But maybe they're just looking in the wrong place. Or maybe just the wrong time. Well, that is all we have for today. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, despite my funky audio and my dog snoring in the background, if you could hear it, she is old. I will not wake her up. I will not move her. Apologies if you heard her, but that's just how it goes. So if you like what you heard and want to hear more outside of those mess ups and mispronunciations, please consider subscribing or leaving a review or joining my Patreon. And remember, friends, history may be watching you, so don't fuck it up. And be careful of the woods. Or in this case, maybe the waters. Bye!